What is the most terrifying thing you've ever seen or heard? Number 1. I was on a plane once and we hit some turbulence. The plane shook and the lights were flickering. Then the lights went out for a few seconds and the young girl in front of me, probably 3 or 4, started calmly singing, "The London Bridge is falling down, and I was convinced the plane was crashing. Number 2. I remember sitting next to some unaccompanied minors on a flight and we got some crazy turbulence. No lights flickering, but some good drops and such. I just told them to hold up their arms like they were on a roller coaster. They had a great time after that. Everyone else not so much. Number 3. When I was 11, I watched a lady get smashed by a train. She drove her car onto the track in front of the train and stopped. Then she got blasted. I was stunned watching her car get pushed along out of sight. It took the train a long time to stop. Trains still make me nervous. It was a suicide. Number 4. Oh shit, similar thing, but I was the asshole. Me, my dad, and my brother love aliens. And one night, my half-brother, who was maybe 10 at the time, decided he wanted to watch it too. After my dad warning him a lot, he finally gave up and let him watch it with us. The movie scared the shit out of him. So being a good older brother, I decided to sneak outside his window at about midnight and claw at it while making the alien hiss. He had trouble sleeping for months. Number 5. Driving in a snowstorm, going well below the speed limit, about 30-ish in a 55 zone. I've got 4-wheel drive, so I've been doing all right so far, but I was on high alert just in case. As I'm driving towards a set of train tracks, the lights go on and the arms go down. I gently push on the brakes, and I don't stop. I push harder on the brakes and I start to slide. When the train starts to pass, my foot is practically smashed against the brake pedal, but still I slide. I ended up stopping about 5 feet short of the train tracks. My front bumper actually hit the railroad crossing arm, but let me tell you, the terror of slowly sliding towards a moving train and not being able to stop is something. Edit. To the people who keep relying and saying, you should have jumped out. I think I got the point after the first 30 of you said that. Also, it's really easy to say you should have done this after the fact. In the moment, your mind freezes up and you can't think of what to do. Number 6. I saw a dude on a motorcycle get demolished by an old woman driving down the wrong side of the road. I was in a school bus for a field trip. The poor guy was in pieces, blood everywhere. Number 7. Lived as a kid in Grozny, Chechnya during the First War, saw a 16-year-old girl get jabbed repeatedly with a long knife at the end of a guy, sort of like a bayonet. After she was apparently raped, died in agony after like 9 jabs. Was walking down the street when I saw a suspicious carpet in front of me, so I walked the other way and suddenly gunshots and yelling rang out at me. The carpet, I suspect, was a trap, probably a hole underneath. Came sprinting home during the first wave of Russian bombardments to find my entire apartment building blown up. Mother could barely walk. No way she made it out. I'm about 99% sure she died. A man who knew I stole from the camps saw me on the street and chased me for nearly an hour through a building. Rebels put prisoners into cages by the dozens and lit them on fire. Often prisoners were civilians. A little girl was raped and found mutilated, with a massive cut through her vagina area all the way into her upper abdomen, ripping her nearly in half. During the first wave of bombings, I remember a very crowded street getting hit directly by an airstrike. Maybe 50 plus killed, 100 plus injured, all on one small street, literally the goriest thing I had ever witnessed. It was like witnessing hell on earth, hundreds of people shrieking in agony all at once. Bandits, marauders, slit a mother's throat in front of her children just to prove a point. Saw a friend of mine get raped and tortured daily in one of the bases I stayed at, and I couldn't do anything about it. He was just tied up against the wall and they did horrible things to him. Got my shoulder ripped by shrapnel from a bombing and almost bled out. I passed out. When I woke up, I realized I wasn't gushing nearly as much blood as I thought, but the pain was tremendous. Running through sniper territory in general is the most adrenaline-inducing thing you can experience. Just hearing those shots ring out, not knowing if it's gonna hit you. It's like a straight shot of adrenaline. Girl, maybe 13, was severely injured in the street from a bombing, and I couldn't do anything about it because we were too far from any base or help. Came back 8 hours later and she was still alive, still shrieking in agony. Number 8. When I was little, I was biking with my dad through our neighborhood a few blocks from our own. While we were riding, I lost my balance and fell off my bike, crashing into a mailbox and knocking it over. I felt terrible, and when the owner of the house whose mailbox I had just plowed through came out screaming at me, I felt worse. I tried to apologize. I even offered to fix it. The guy didn't care. He kept pushing me down, yelling swears at me that I had never heard before given my age at the time. When I did get to my feet, he kept charging me, forcing me to give ground and pushing me every time he got within arm's reach. Then he started kicking me, hard enough to knock the wind out of me. But what scared me the most were his eyes, angry, hateful, and pitiless. I honestly thought he was going to kill me. As I had raced ahead of my dad, he was just turning the corner onto the street at this point. He took one look at what was happening, and that was it. He ditched his bike, charged up the street, and started pummeling the man. No words, just fists. I sat there in pure shock as I watched my dad beat this psycho bloody. Neighbors called the cops and came out to the street trying to break it up. By the end of it, the mailbox guy was a bloody, incoherent mess. The whole time I sat there in silence just trying to piece together some reason or cause for everything that had just occurred. In the end, my dad was let off with a warning. Most of the neighbors backed him up, as they had seen the mailbox psycho beating me around before they'd come out to help break things up. I vaguely remember a few trips to the police station after that, answering questions, pointing at the guy who'd beaten me. I remember hearing some neighbor tell me he'd moved away after the neighborhood committee kept harassing him. Some lady told me, "He won't hurt anyone again, sweetie." Still never forgot, though. Those eyes still fucking scare me. Number 9. This is going to sound so incredibly stupid. A really young kid, 3, 4, ran out in front of my car several years ago. I slammed on the brakes, hard, but I probably wouldn't have needed to because he darted across the street so fast. I had to pull over because I was shaking so bad, I could hardly breathe. My sight was blurry, and my gut hurt. My little brother died from something similar when I was growing up, and it just brought back all those memories. I had nightmares for the next few days about it, too. It shook me up so bad. Number 10, walked into a hospital room to find my mother's godfather, who we had been helping to care for, had passed away. That itself isn't terrifying, however, the position he died in haunts me, holding the sides of the bed tightly, facing the ceiling, eyes still open and looking like he was terrified of what he was seeing. The nurses stated that they had checked on him 10 minutes earlier, but the fact that he was stone cold, I suspect otherwise, still twists my stomach thinking of it. Number 11. I think the scariest thing that I've ever seen was when I worked in a nursing home. We had a patient there for rehab, but she didn't want to go home to her husband and she refused treatment to get better. So when her insurance ran out because she was just supposed to be there short term, she started to quit eating and she was a diabetic. And she refused her meds, and then all liquids. I don't know if this was her attempt of suicide or what, but she always said she couldn't go home to her husband. I was an 18-year-old CNA at the time. I didn't think how maybe it was because he was abusive or who knows what. The last 8 HRS of her life were on my shift. She spent it shaking and convulsing, and when she died, we went in to clean her before the coroner came for her. We closed her eyes and jaws. They'd been open, staring at the ceiling, wide-eyed. We turned her in the bed to clean her, and we pulled her my way. Her eyes shot open and some kind of bile shot out of her mouth and covered my scrubs. That face haunted my nightmares for weeks. Number 12. When I just turned 18, I got a job at a cleaning company that removed bio-waste from trains after they got hit. Mostly ex-convicts that worked there. I got it through a friend. It paid fantastic, but the hours were shit. I usually just hosed down the train after the more experienced guys scooped up whatever they needed to and put it in baggies. One time I got a call in the middle of the night on a Saturday. I was the only one who answered, so my boss picked me up, and it was just the two of us. Girl jumped or stumbled or whatever in front of a train, and we had to basically collect her pieces to give to the medical or coroner. There was one lump of flesh with blonde hair. The hair was eerily untouched, growing out of a bloodied scalp. I quit the next day. $50 an hour is great at 18, but I couldn't eat right for months. Story number 13. Uncle helped me. My little brother's 4-year-old daughter called to me from the back deck. She had been cornered by an adult coyote. I charged through the screen door, scaring it away. That was the most afraid I have ever been, and I think I cried harder than she did. She'll be 30 in a few months, and at Christmas this year, she and her husband introduced the family to their new son. Before she handed him to me, she whispered to him, "This one will always protect you." Number 14, hallucinations from delirium tremens. What hopefully none of you have or will have to experience about DTs is that even when one knows that you're hallucinating, not only do you see, hear shit, but your mind also tries to make it seem real. So when I saw these ghostly black dogs in my bedroom, it was really fucking difficult to convince myself they weren't real. Edit, Wednesday morning. So I wasn't expecting to wake up with 40 inbox replies, but if this is getting a lot of attention, I want to throw a PSA out there. Delirium tremens is a very serious condition. They can kill you. It affects all parts of your brain, including those that regulate your heart. Also, the fear and very intense confusion they cause often lead people to commit suicide. I went through it once by toughing it out and risked my life because I was too scared to tell anyone. The last time I went through alcohol withdrawals, I took myself to the emergency room, and I have zero regrets about doing so. I've kept sober since. And if anyone is struggling with alcohol and doesn't know what to do, I am happy to offer help. Just know I would most likely press you to find more long-term help professionally and in a recovery community. Number 15, waking up to the screams of my 3 younger siblings as a robber broke into their room in the middle of the night. Jesus. I remember being high, and as soon as I heard those screams, I felt the adrenaline running through me. I dialed 911 on my phone as I ran to the kitchen, looking for anything I could use as a weapon. First thing I saw was a pair of those pitchfork-looking things you use to grill. As 911 answered, I dropped my phone and yelled out my address while running to my siblings' room. The guy had already left from the screams, I suppose. Thankfully, the kids were unharmed. I'll never forget how terrifying their screams were. It still haunts me from time to time. Story 16. I was 7. It was Father's Day, 1994. 2 days before Father's Day, my little sister had turned 6. It was a beautiful day, and we begged my stepdad to take us to the park to play, but he insisted that there was work to be done at home. So we whined, but our whining was lost. I remember how blue the sky was. He got out the riding lawnmower, and he felt bad for not taking us to park, so he offered to let us ride on the lawnmower with him. My 3-year-old brother rode in his lap, and my little sister and I rode on the back, feet dangling over the back. It was great fun. He stopped the mower once to go hand my brother to my big pregnant mom. My little sister jumped off to go pee in the house. He got back on the lawn mower and started mowing again, and I got to ride luxuriously on the back by myself. Little sister came running out, and I tried yelling at her to stay off, not to try getting back on. I may have pushed her back, I don't know, but that's been a part of my nightmares. Stepdad has no idea my sister is behind us trying to get up and is backing up the lawnmower. She went down and I freaked out. The tire is rolling over her body, her right foot having been caught under the tire and trapping her first. I'm screaming, but my stepdad can't hear me. I can't hear myself. I see her panicking, and I know she has to be yelling. She was trying to push the tire off her to stop its inevitable climb. I couldn't jump down to help her, or I'd be run over too. And I am wondering if her head is going to be crushed because it's on her stomach and still going. My mom, in her last month of pregnancy, must have heard me because she ran, her big baby belly swinging, and I'm clawing at my stepdad's back. But I can't look away from my little sister too long because if I do, she might be gone forever. Mom jumped on my stepdad and is hammering on him with her fists, and he starts slamming gears and trying to pull forward and turn it off. After what seemed like eternity, finally, it's turned off, and all there is this deafening silence. My sister gasping for a breath, the blue sky, and lots of blood. Turned out that while running over my sister with a lawnmower, the back tire getting all the way up to her chest, it kept her from getting sucked into the blades. But while pulling forward, it sliced off her big toe. My sister hardly cried as a child. She cried a little about this, but I sat with her by myself while my parents ran around calling 911 and stuff. Story 17. Recently fell down the Reddit hole and clicked on a live leak link of a kid jumping off a cliff and breaking his face open on the rocks below. The video included a scene where they were trying to keep him alive with a tube in his throat, but his face was spilt 4 ways, and when the nurse moved her hand, it literally fell apart. He was alive at that point, and you could see him breathing and shaking. God knows what went through his head before he died. I regret clicking that one. Someone else can track it down if they feel the need to watch it. Story 18. I posted this the other day. Today on my first hunting trip, my cousin and I were trying to cross a frozen river, and he was testing the ice with the buttstock of his gun. He was shooting .50 caliber muzzle loader. He leaned over his gun to hit it against the ice under him, and the gun went off and shot him in the chest. I was right next to him, and within about 10 seconds, I had cut his shirts off and had shoved my beanie into the wound to apply pressure. I lifted his legs up and held them straight up to drain the blood into his torso while he's yelling, "I'm gonna fucking die." His brother was about 100 feet away, so I yelled at him. He radioed his dad, who was about 1/4 of a mile away, and rushed over to me. We called 911, and they had an officer at the top of a near road because we were in the middle of the forest. So his brother ran to the top of a hill, got the officer, and I stayed on the phone with the 911 operator, describing the gunshot wound and giving location information. After about 5 minutes, his dad and the officer got to the scene and we started working on him. We pretty much kept him stable until the fire department got there, and then they took over. They had to drag him up the hill through the forest and load him into an ambulance to drive him to the hospital. It took about 2.5 hours to get him out of the forest and to the ambulance. We had like 20 dudes, switching out carrying the stretcher uphill, through the snow. He's alive, but in the ICU. My adrenaline is still going, and that was more than 12 hours ago. Story 19. A bomb exploding in a running train. It was the year 2006. There were a series of bomb blasts in Mumbai, and I was in one of those trains. The coach next to us blew up. The sound was so loud that we all went deaf for a minute or two. The roof of the coach opened like you turn a page of a book. There were limbs and bodies flying all over. In Mumbai local trains, the doors are not shut. So many people fell, and some intentionally jumped on the parallel railway track fearing another blast, and a train coming from behind ran all over them. I was 9 back then. Sometimes I still get nightmares. Story 20. When I was 18, I stopped my car because I saw another car stopped on the side of the road. We were on top of a hill, but it didn't go down on the side the car was stuck on. The lady had gotten out, and we started to push with her pushing the back and me right next to her. Another car came flying over the hill and slammed into the back of her car, hitting and killing her immediately. It missed me by what felt like an inch. I don't know how to explain it after that. The guy who was driving got out of the car and started talking to me, but I didn't hear any of it. The lady was just on the ground, not moving. One moment she was alive and the next gone. It was so fast and terrifying I had no idea what to do. You know those moments in movies where the character witnesses something awful and sound goes away and they can only focus on the thing they witnessed? It felt like that, I guess. Sorry, I am terrible at explaining this, but yeah, it has never left my mind to this day, man. It was so fucked up.